Ask a traditional boss or relative about young people today, and you'll likely hear the same specific list of complaints. They're lazy, they're overly sensitive, they're permanently glued to their screens. Many managers describe a workforce that refuses the 14-hour grind, demands flexible hours, and lacks the analog skills, like writing a check, that defined previous generations. The tension stems from the fact that traditional methods of control are losing their effectiveness. Tactics built on blind obedience and guilt-tripping fail to produce results when applied to a generation that refuses to be emotionally blackmailed. Labeling this behavior as simple disrespect ignores the underlying question. This generation is asking why they should respect a system that they perceive as fundamentally broken. Older Indian generations followed a script where duty meant sacrifice. You respected elders, suffered quietly, and wore long office hours as a badge of honor. While earlier generations spent decades slowly realizing that the promises of job security and degrees were often hollow, Gen Z was born into a world where that realization was already the default. They opened their eyes to a feed full of cheap data, mass layoffs on LinkedIn, and the immediate visual proof of climate disasters in their own cities. They are starting their careers from a position of deep-seated doubt, operating on a mental system that demands proof before it offers trust. This is India's first generation treating the internet not as a tool, but as an environment. It's where they were raised, and it has shaped how they process reality. Their brains handle multiple parallel streams, Discord chats, reels, and side hustle research at a speed that can look like distraction to an outsider. Constant exposure to corporate greenwashing, fake nationalism, and curated influencer lifestyles has forced them to develop a sharp radar for authenticity. They have moved past taking claims at face value. Instead, they rely on search value, fact-checking statements, reading comments, and watching critiques before giving attention. Because they've seen stable jobs vanish in a single email, they are replacing the 40-year loyalty model with a focus on extreme adaptability. They prioritize skills that can be used anywhere, like coding, design, or marketing, over certificates that might be rejected everywhere. This has led to the rise of the portfolio career. Many are building multiple income streams simultaneously, running thrift pages or consulting while they work or study. They view a traditional job not as their entire identity, but simply as one tab in their browser. For them, building multiple escape routes is the only rational way to navigate a volatile economy. However, this hyper-connected life has a visible cost. Algorithm-driven platforms push a specific, aesthetic-focused culture that prioritizes trends over actual identity. You can see a glitch in the psychology, where some confuse progress with the shallow imitation of global or Western trends, often without understanding the context behind them. This results in the adoption of imported slang and performative dating scripts that feel hollow when placed against the reality of Indian family and community life. The most self-aware members of this generation often reject this performative layer, seeing it as a version of themselves that values clout over confidence. When you look past the filters, you find a generation driven by a commitment to alignment. They want their outer lives to match their inner values, and they are willing to walk away when that balance is missing. This translates into a demand for employers to take a stand. They expect brands to be inclusive and ethical year-round, not just during Pride Month or Environmental Awareness Weeks. They are calling out exploitation and demanding climate accountability because they know they will live with the consequences of current policies longer than those in power. By prioritizing fulfillment over duty-driven suffering, they are changing the cultural baseline for what success in India looks like. Perhaps the most visible change is how they handle mental health. They speak openly about burnout and anxiety, treating rest as a requirement for living rather than a reward for decades of work. Setting boundaries or choosing sanity over sacrifice is a deliberate act of self-preservation. Their influence comes from their refusal to pretend they don't see what is wrong with the system they were handed. They are not following the script of the previous generation. They are using the uncomfortable truths they've uncovered to write a new one for the future.